Hey folks, David here. If you want more of your fear-coded hosts, then you simply must check out the other Glitterjaw podcast, Walloping Web Snappers, because each one of us has joined Doug as he thwips through the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoons and a recently released, my notes say here, film. You can hear me on the December 17th and 24th episodes from last year. Tyler, along with Gavin from the Mixed Reviews, joined Doug on their Patreon feed for some exclusive coverage of Craven the Hunter. That's free for a limited time, so make sure and check that out. And then Marilee will be on the January 7th and 14th episodes. None of these are horror, but I think we all end up agreeing that the media we watched was pretty terrifying. Okay, back to your regular schedule stuff. Sorry to hold you up. Welcome to Fear Coded, a podcast where we talk about media from the horror genre and take a queer reading of a single book, video game, film, podcast, or TV show to explore just how queer horror can be. And in this episode, we are buckling our seatbelts into a crapped out Volkswagen Rabbit as we begin Genteenuary, a month of talking teens, which begins with the totally 80s novel from 2022, My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. I'm David.
I'm Marilee.
And I'm Tyler.
Now, listen, first of all, to my two bestie co-hosts, welcome to season 2 of Fear Coded, where weekly you just cannot stop us.
Woo!
We love doing this so much.
We do. We can't stop us.
You can't and won't stop us unless required to by federal law. To both of my friends who I love both dearly and queerly in the landscape of horrors that our real world has to offer, what is making y'all scared, or what's making you feel prepared?
I feel prepared.
Awesome.
So I like to eat food, right?
Sure.
Yeah, it's delicious.
Delicious.
And required for your life to continue.
Exactly. But here on Fear Coded, we don't only just survive, we thrive.
We thrive.
And that's why today...
What food is causing your thriving today, Tyler?
It's not just one food, David. It is just the actual idea of breakfast food.
It's incredible.
We are in favor of breakfast food on this podcast.
Think about it. Some of the best food out there is breakfast food. You got waffles, you got eggs. Eggs can be made in so many different ways. You put some cheese on it, salt and pepper, maybe throw some tomatoes, avocado in there. Bacon, of course. There's bacon, sausage biscuits. Put some chicken, honey and chicken on a biscuit.
Delicious.
It's just it's all so good. And then of course you can also make smoothies, and then you got a nice bright start to the day with a whole bunch of different fruits. I love waking up and having an apple or some a strawberry and banana smoothie. That's always really yummy, and that's a good start to the day. I just really love breakfast. I think breakfast might be my favorite meal of the day.
It's the most important one for sure.
I've heard that, Marilee. I've heard that from someone I think before. Here's the deal, Tyler and Marilee. You might both hate me about this, but I love breakfast foods, and I rarely eat breakfast.
Okay, I am right there with you.
Okay, see, but I wake up and I think, God, do I want to make a mess to start the day?
Absolutely not.
If I could just have breakfast, I would do that. And I can, of course, go to any one of 1,000 restaurants and have a tostada, which is just toast, which is what we eat for breakfast here.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. I don't get hungry for the first hour or so that I'm awake. And so most of the time I've already left my house to go to work by that point. So if I have something like a Pop-Tart or a granola bar or something, I will eat that for breakfast. But most of the time I'm with you. Breakfasts are a weekend luxury, I'm afraid.
And that's the thing. I am so prepared because breakfast exists, but it's also made more special because when you do have the time to make a really good breakfast, or if you go out and you get some breakfast food and it just ends up being cooked perfectly, it's exactly what you wanted, it's exactly what you were craving when you woke up, or an hour after waking up, then it's just God, my morning is fucking made, right now.
It's true, 100%.
And that's what I love about breakfast, and that's why I'm glad that we exist in a world where breakfast is a thing. So that is what is making me feel prepared. What about the two of you?
I, this week, am feeling prepared.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, this is going to be so exciting.
I did count the number of times that we were all prepared and scared over the past first season of the podcast, and it went pretty much as everyone would expect it to go. Tyler was the most prepared, least scared, Marilee right in the middle, and then me, pretty much mirroring Tyler's responses the opposite direction. But today, I am matching Tyler's responses by saying that I'm prepared because, it's been cool. So we've been able to have the windows open. It's been very delightful. But a downside to having the windows open is that, man, just everything gets so darn dusty. And so today I went on a ravenous cleaning extravaganza.
Hell yeah.
I am coming to you from a spotless desk. It is so pretty and wonderful. I cleaned baseboards, which is like the most disgusting thing you can do because they don't look bad until you then clean them and then you go, what have I been doing with my life? I cleaned the top of the door. That's also like toxically disgusting. I even took these wonderful soundproof tiles out and beat them on the patio just to release whatever is in them. And I'm back now. This is all clean. I'm so happy. I'm not the kind of person who, dirt bothers me. But, boy, it is so nice to be sitting down at a desk where everything is clean. And just, I've moved things a little bit. So I've, rearranged my stuff. It just feels like not only a good start to our season 2, a good start to the new year, but just a great thing to have available to you. Clean desk. That's what's making me feel prepared today. Marilee, take us home?
Yeah, I'm prepared too.
No way. Holy shit, the trifecta.
Yeah, we're starting out with a trifecta. What a great way to start the year.
For real, though. So what is it? What is it, Marilee, that brought you across the finish line?
Well, so lately I have been playing a lot of Coral Island. And just simply... is there something better than a little game that you can just control your little guy and do your little things and farm your little farm? It makes me so happy. I love this game so dearly.
That makes me so happy. So you farming things are obviously going around collecting. Does it have any social parameters? Are there other NPCs for you to interact with? Things like that?
Who can you romance?
Absolutely.
Who can you romance?
I haven't romanced anybody yet because this is my first playthrough. So I'm really focused in on all of the stuff you can do, and I haven't, even though I have a couple characters that I could start dating, I haven't really explored that area yet because I'm very busy trying to complete the main quest line.
There you go.
But so Coral Island is a game that's very much in the Stardew Valley area. You know that Stardew Valley is my favorite video game of all time, and this is that, except it's got these absolutely beautiful graphics, and it is with a Pacific, a South Pacific kind of flair. So it's made with a non-white perspective, which I think is beautiful and we need more of. And the big thing with this game is that you also have this whole undersea aspect that you can explore, because there's mermaids in this whole aquatic kingdom. It's awesome. It's so much fun. I funded the Kickstarter, and then because I asked for a Switch key during the final checkout, when it came out on the computer version, not just the beta, full open launch on computer, I ended up buying it again.
Oh no!
Because I wanted to play it so bad. It still hasn't come out on Switch. I don't know that it ever will, actually, because they were going through Humble Games, and Humble Games fired everybody in their department that was supposed to be doing that. So the developers have been hey, I'm really sorry we can't fulfill this Kickstarter goal at the moment for a Switch port. If you have a Steam key, you can trade it for a computer key or get your money back, but I'm keeping that Steam key in my pocket for right now, because if they ever do port over to the Switch, I want to be able to do that because I love this game, and if it never happens, then I would have spent my money well anyway, because that's how much I love it.
Yeah, for real. Tyler, have you heard of Coral Island? I know you're not a big Stardew person, but was this on your radar?
I have heard of it. I didn't know too much about it though, so that's actually really cool. I didn't know that it had like a non-white perspective, which I agree we definitely need more of, and I think that's super cool that it exists. I didn't know it was like Stardew Valley. I kind of thought, like, just kind of looking at some of the screenshots, it was supposed to be kind of like an Animal Crossing sort of vibe.
Well, so that's the thing. The Stardew Valley was created, and Mr. Concerned Ape, who I, as you know, have a lot of respect for, has said that, like, when he was making this game, he took all of the best parts of Animal Crossing and Harvest Moon, and that's how he created Stardew Valley.
Oh.
And so Coral Island, at least to me, has taken all of the best parts of Stardew Valley and all of like the Stardew Valley clones that have since come out, as well as like the new stuff that they put in the new Harvest Moon and Animal Crossing games, and made a super game that's all of the best parts of everything.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. I'm more into this game now.
Yeah, it's really,
gone up
really
on
fun.
my list.
I had wondered, Tyler, after looking at a picture of the romanceable characters, if maybe you were familiar with the character of Mark, who is a large bearded man with some scars over his eye, who I feel like has been present in my social media feeds for the past... since this game's release.
He's in Coral Island or Stardew Valley?
Yeah, I would just encourage
Island.
you to type Mark Coral Island, and I think you have seen this character before, Tyler.
Oh, goodness. Yes, I have seen him before.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's a handsome guy. He's
Hi,
also
Mark.
really nice in the game.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm definitely going to be playing this
so
game.
Good. It's so fun. There are just a lot of really fun and different mechanics in it. There is a point where you can get a farm under the ocean, and I'm so close to Aquatic Farm. I'm so close.
Marilyn, you can't breathe underwater.
You can. I'm a mermaid at this point. Like,
okay, well then we're done. We're done.
Yeah, I completed the diving storyline so much that like I'm a mermaid now. I can become a mermaid in the water.
That's how evolution works.
Yes, that's how it works. Yeah. Like I stopped playing for a really long time after it first came out. I got through like the first year and it was like, this is an awesome game, but I got busy and I just kind of put to the side, and I picked it back up, and it's simply still the greatest game. I love it so much. It's making me so prepared. You don't even know.
So happy. I love games like this. I love a cozy game. I love that we jumped to romanceable characters like Katie Wood from Novel Gaming.
Yeah, no, I think it's really funny that you guys both were like, hey, let's do romance. It's like, I have a farm.
I have things to do. There is a plot. Let's go.
I have to save Coral Island from Amazon. That's also drilling. And I've got to protect the goddess. I've got all of this stuff to do. I'm so close to completing the goddess shrine. I'm so close.
There's a lot of plot to this game. I thought it was just like, here's a farm. Go
listen,
farm.
Every game that wants to be Stardew Valley has so much more going on than you could possibly imagine.
Wow. Okay, I'm definitely going to be checking this out then.
Yes!
Well, you can't check it out now, Tyler, because today we are jumping into a book that we all read. This is our first novel on the podcast. We are talking about the 2022 novel by Grady Hendrix, My Best Friend's Exorcism. The story is about the friendship that develops between Abby and Gretchen after Abby's turbulent 10th birthday party in 1982 and their even more turbulent sophomore year at a private school in 1988.
One night, Abby, Gretchen, and their other two close friends try LSD, and Gretchen gets separated from the group and lost in the South Carolina woods. When she is found, she seems different. At first, she seems sick, missing school for multiple days. But when Abby starts to suspect that something happened in the woods, Gretchen returns to school and starts to corrupt the lives of everyone around her.
After a chance encounter by way of a school assembly, Abby recruits the help of an exorcist to help her friend. The thrilling climax comes when Abby and the exorcist kidnap Gretchen and attempt to exorcise the demon that has taken her hostage. What are your experiences with this outstanding novel, My Best Friend's Exorcism?
Yeah, this was, I think I talked about this on socials, but I have not read for pleasure until we read this book together, because I have been so stuck in a mindset of reading for work, which I don't need to do anymore. And so I had just an absolute blast with this book. I think that it was fantastic. I read it all in one sitting, had a blast with it. I was so lucky. Mike went out for drinks with his friends, and I was like, don't come home. I have to finish this book. And I read it in like 3 different rooms, which is my favorite way to read, when you sort of like, you start on the recliner and then you go lay down in bed and then you're like, no, fuck this. I'm going outside to the terrace. Like, it was just incredible. I loved it. And I think the writing was very, very compelling. I did not want to stop reading it.
I actually read Hendrix's more recent The Final Girl support group earlier this year before putting it down, because I'm really bad at sticking with books these days. But from what I read, I really enjoyed it. And in that book, there's a lot of like serious subject matter that's discussed. And there's a little bit of that same subject matter that actually crops up in my best friend's Exorcism. So I felt like comfortable reading this, knowing that it's not going to be like really schlocky and exploitative or anything like that, which is kind of like what I worry about with some like horror novels. But honestly, this was really well done. Much like David did, I talked about this on socials as well. I had a hard time putting this book down. It was really outstanding, very cinematic. It really did feel like the cover of like the paperback that you can get now makes it look like it's an old VHS tape from the 80s, and I think that's appropriate because the story itself is written in a very cinematic manner, and we'll definitely be talking about that a lot more during this episode.
I love that. I'm so thrilled with the fact that you guys like couldn't put it down and just like call me Ron Stoppable, because I had a hard time picking this one up.
Marilee, who recommended the book, was I think the third of us to finish.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's just how it goes sometimes. Like, I've read Grady Hendrix's first book, Horror Store, which I had such a great time with. That was one that I also like couldn't put down. And so like I was aware of him after that, and he kept putting out these really great books. And like from the title to this, I remember thinking, God, I gotta get that in like 2022. And then I just didn't get around to it. I eventually picked up a copy like about a year ago, and it's been languishing on my to be read shelf ever since. So like thank you for being my reason to actually pick this up and finish it. Greatest book club ever. I appreciate you guys.
Why are you thinking us? You picked the book.
I did, but I simply wouldn't have actually finished it if not for you guys.
It's so funny because I remember finishing it, and then I messaged our little group chat, and I was like, couldn't put it down, finish it. And I believe that Marilee was like, how dare you? How honestly dare you just devour this book? But I just had too much fun to stop. I
love that for you guys. We're going to talk about it in a minute. But I was doing the audiobook for the first part, and that was a mistake. Once I started reading the actual physical book, I sat down and like in an hour read like a huge chunk of it. And then I just got busy and I couldn't like read more than 30 pages at a time for the rest of the book. But I still, even with all of that going on, loved it. It's a genuinely incredible book. I got a lot of stuff going on, and I'm so tired, guys.
Yeah. Oh, that's very fair.
I'm also interested, Marilee, since you did at least get through the first half on the audiobook. I think we all ended up reading the book. But how did the audiobook handle the multimedia interstitials that were part of the book?
So most of the time, I think I actually stopped right before like I got to like the weight loss things. Okay. But so I'm not actually sure if I saw any of those in the audiobook, but like the sound design of the audiobook is really good. Okay. And that's part of the problem for me. Yeah, because like it's a whole. We'll talk about it in like 5 minutes.
Okay.
It's fine.
Great. Just so everyone knows, like this is a multimodal book. So every once in a while you'll be reading a chapter, and then there will be a brochure for something that might have been around in this universe that we encounter. Not a lot of that in our discussion today, but it was really good in creating an overall feel of the vibes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So all January long, as we discussed at the very beginning of our episode, we will be looking at horror stories that center on the teenage experience. So these are some themes and talking points that we're going to be discussing and focusing on through the remainder of the episode. Our very first one is being believed. One of the implicit horrors of childhood is not being believed. And when you are a teenager and more certain of what you see and what you feel, but you're still treated as untrustworthy by adults and authority figures, there's a frustration and fear that surrounds your life. And this is on full display in My Best Friend's Exorcism. I found the gaslighting by adults, or just the general disbelief in Abby and what Abby is experiencing, extremely stressful. I actually found that the more horrifying or just uncomfortable parts of the book over some of the more supernatural, scary elements.
Yeah, agreed.
It's incredible. Like, no one believes Abby. If Abby had come to any adult character and been like, I think I might be queer, they'd be like, no, you are not. Because that's all Abby gets for anything. If Abby was like, I think donuts are on sale, they'd be like, no, they are not. Just poor Abby cannot win.
Mm-hmm.
No, she can't catch a break. Nobody ever believes her. I swear to God, at one point I very similar. It was like she could tell them that the sky is blue and they tell her no, it's green.
It's red.
And it's infuriating, and it was a lot to handle.
But it's very real too.
Oh, 100%.
And truly wonderful, because it made there be no adult allies until Christian that were available for her, and even Christian, as we'll talk about, wasn't there for her. Like, it's really, really well done in answering the question that I think a lot of young adult novels deal with, which is how do you take away the resolution of this conflict to just go to an authority figure or parent? Because so many of these things would be fixed if you could just talk to someone who believed you. But by removing belief from the equation, what Hendrix has done is he has created a very compelling narrative.
And I think it's so, like, very 80s. That's extremely, he nails the 80s vibes, because in 80s media, or media that focuses on the 80s, like, let's say the first season of Stranger Things, the kids are totally disbelieved by adults throughout almost the majority of that movie, except for, Winona Ryder, who's going through her own experience, and that's kind of isolated just to her. The kids have their own thing, but no one believes them. And same thing with E.T., which is a major cultural icon that shows up repeatedly in the book. The adults are not really helpful until, like, the very end, and in many instances they're just straight up antagonistic. So I love that. The other theme that we're going to discuss, or one of the other themes, is the only constant is changed. There is an impermanence during adolescence that haunts every friend you make, every success you enjoy, and every trial you face. With bodily change and social change, there is an intrinsic fear of every moment, because there is no routine or assurance.
Yeah. I love this as a conceit to the whole teen of it all that we're talking about all month long, is this idea that there's just everything is in flux. And when that happens, we don't get the sort of psychological safety of having a home base to come to, because that home base might change tomorrow. Now, maybe literally you're not moving, but it's the idea that, like, nothing is solid ground. And I love that. And just so much of this novel was laced by this idea that, is there something supernatural happening, or are teenagers just changing, and therefore, like, this is just change that Abby's experiencing, and it's not supernatural. And I loved that.
Yeah, I am in total agreement with you about that. I love that there was some ambiguity. I think it becomes, like, a little bit more heavily, like, this is definitely something supernatural as the novel progresses. But for a while there, it's very much just like, is this just what happens? Like, childhood friends don't always stay childhood friends as they become teenagers. But then also, when you're a teen, everything feels permanent. Like, you're always going to be going through drama. You're always going to be miserable. You're always going to be treated poorly by adults, you know, and so on and so forth, because that's all the world that you know, because you just haven't had the wisdom of, you know, that comes with age to realize, like, no, everything does change. And I think that moment when, as a teenager, when you do realize that, like, oh, things are going to be different, things will start changing, it's a very, like, almost traumatic experience, because it's something that sticks with you forever from that point on. And I think that there's such a good element of that throughout the novel that doesn't always manifest, like, completely, like, in your face, but it is something that's just kind of like a current running through the background of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I also just think that, like, besides the nostalgia bomb of it all and, like, the simple aesthetics pleasure of, like, 80s stuff, I really think that, like, that as a setting really works with that theme, because there was so much happening in the 80s that was, like, such a big change from everything that had come before. I think that, like, that theme, this setting, the aesthetics of it all really work hand in hand to make an incredible story.
Yeah.
Totally. I love that. So one of our final themes that we're going to discuss today is they're all going to laugh at you. Conformity in adolescence is a comfort and security. And being seen as different can be very scary when you do not feel secure. So just that idea that we have to conform with others, and that conformity means safety, and being different is terrifying. That is absolutely so real as a teenager.
100%.
I know 100%. I
100%.
experienced that, like, especially because I didn't realize I was gay until I was like 20 years old. So the fact that, you know, I'm going through high school, like, terrified that I'll be perceived as gay, because I knew there was something going on in the back of my head. The demons were trying to trick me into liking dick, you know, that sort of thing.
Oh my God.
And so I was just like, I got to be like all the other, you know, the other teenagers. I got to like this stuff. I got to like that stuff. I got to not do theater until like my senior year, else I'll be perceived as gay. And then everyone will figure out the truth. You know, that sort of thing. Very real. I think Hendrix, again, he did a really great job nailing that vibe, that tension that comes from realizing that you are outside of what is considered the norm.
Yeah. I think that I was trying to look up the passage in the book to, like, get the exact quote, but I simply couldn't find it, and to be honest, didn't look that hard. But I was, like, flipping through, and I was like, nope, it would be too long to try and find it. But pretty early in the book, Abby talks about, like, the dress code in the school, and about how, like, all of the kids, like, were chafing under, like, how strict their dress code was, but also it was, like, one thing that kept them better than the other school. And, like, talked about, like, the girls' dress code specifically, like, this is how everybody dressed, and, like, these were the things that you did specifically if you wanted to stand out in these ways. And she said, if you wanted to stand out and be an individual, you had these 3 patterns that you could wear. And, like, everybody was, like, trying to stand out, but well within the crowd. Like, really works for this theme.
Yeah. And while we're talking about themes, I think that beyond just the teen of it all, since it is Jan-Teenuary, I think that this novel doesn't work without some knowledge of the 1980s Satanic Panic. And so I have brought for our consideration Satanic Panic at the Disco. For folks who are not aware, Satanic Panic was the moral panic after thousands of unsubstantiated cases of satanic rituals and related abuse were made, that originated in 1980 after the now discredited work of Lawrence Pazder, who used so-called recovered memory therapy, Mulder, to coax stories from patient Michelle Smith. I would also like to go on to say that Pazder entered an unethical relationship with Smith and married her after coaxing memories that she did not have in their therapeutic sessions. So,
yikes!
Get mental health help if you need, but maybe don't go to a psychologist. So I guess this is what I'm saying for your picture.
Not this one, anyway.
Come at me, psychologists. This was then fed by popular media, which was released in the 1970s. Future episodes, The Exorcist, Rosemary's Baby, Carrie, and cemented by the McMartin preschool trial, which I think you both are too young to have been around for. But in this trial, a leader, a conspiracy theorist named Kee McFarlane, came and said that she had worked with all of these preschool children and that they were all being abused by staff, sexually abused by staff members of the preschool as part of satanic rituals. And she used these highly suggestive interviewing techniques with children to collect that so-called evidence. And that is why across our country, D&D was being targeted by this. The devil was everywhere. This idea and notion of satanic panic was present. And you would have things like Satan is home with your adolescent child. That is what's driving this change. And it was part of the overall growing conservatism of the 1980s. And this book is nestled so nicely with all of that.
100%.
That's great. Great take there.
Yeah, I really appreciate you doing the research on that. I will say, and this is so dumb, but I feel like it should be said, is that I wish that Satanic and Panic didn't have that fun slant rhyme in the middle of it, because a part of me, and I know that this is nonsense, because, like, you know, the religious conservative, like, all of those other things flying around, but a part of me is convinced to my bones that things wouldn't have gotten as out of hand in this country with the Satanic Panic if those two words didn't sound so great next to each other.
No, okay, but Marilee, like, I want you to take back the idea that this is stupid or that it's silly or anything, because I 110% believe that you are exactly right, that one of the reasons why these bullshit conspiracy theories and moral panics happen is because they have great publicity and they're really catchy. Like, the idea that, like, the Satanists are controlling our children through media and make-believe games and stuff. We should panic about this. It's a satanic panic. Like, that is something that just, it's basic advertising. It's quick, it's fast, it hits you, it's memorable. These are the things that resonate in people's minds, and they just kind of circulate, and people focus on them. And that's how they become so powerful, and how they grip people's minds. And part of that is because great publicity, great naming. Like, the idea that, like QAnon, for instance, like, that is just, like, kind of spooky sounding. It's interesting, it's intriguing just in terms of naming. And I think that's one of the reasons why people, like, get hooked on it, you know?
Yeah. Well, it should surprise neither of you that McFarlane was also particularly homophobic and virulent against that. She named homosexuals.
What a surprise.
Mm-hmm. Shocking, right? She named homosexuals as a blight upon the earth. McFarlane was the one who gave us the "show me where on this doll someone touched you," which is where her sort of debunked evidence all came from. And the exact same things that McFarlane and her sort of disciples did in the 80s are the techniques that are used by groups like QAnon, Tyler. Like, that is, the playbook has actually not changed. And so even today, when you see labels being bandied forth about, like, who is a pedophile and who isn't, that's just modern day satanic panic. The whole thing has not really changed course. And so we really have to continue to think about this as queer people, because I think we can accidentally find ourselves picking up the tools of the people who will then later oppress us if we're not careful, because this shit is just everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But we will not, because we know that equity is the most important thing outside of horror. And so let's...
Sorry, you really got me with that.
It's the best segue I got. What do we think of this novel as a piece of horror media? Were you all scared reading this?
So this is a tough audiobook listen if you are like me and characters having a bad social time is really stressful for you. If that stresses you out, like, it's the elf thing again. If that stresses you out, do not read the audiobook. Because I don't know what it was. Like, even when, like, there was worse stuff happening by the point where I was pick up the book. But, like, I don't know, maybe it was, like, the out of control, and it's, like, because I had to, like, listen to it. Because I love audiobooks. I normally, most of the time, like, these days, all of my reading is done through audiobooks because I can multitask. Like, I have too much stuff to do to, like, sit and read most of the time. So, like, I'll put it on while I do laundry or I play video games or crochet or something. And I simply couldn't do it with this book because it was, like, stressing me out too bad. As soon as I switched to the actual physical book, oh my... so much smoother sailing. Like, all of, like, the horrifying, like, the tapeworm stuff. But it was gross, but I was fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I really love that you call that out, Marilee, because I think that is, you know, major source of tension in the book is the awkwardness and just the fear of social rejection. A lot of scenes set in the high school, or just, like, the school, because it's like an all grades kind of academy, but you know, it was just like having that question of like, are you mad at me, kind of just like circulating through your brain, and like that was part of like the plot, you know. So I love that. I think that was really creepy and scary, just because it's like it's relatable, you know, like we all experience that kind of fear, but also like the actual supernatural and creepy moments, like the tapeworm scene, which made me recoil. I loved how horrific.
Look at David, he's so thrilled.
There was so much gross stuff in this book. I'm so happy. I'm so happy about this book. I think this was horror because I do think that if you take off all of the finery of the 1980s from this, you have a very, very, not paint by numbers to be like derivative, but it is sort of like the horror story about an exorcism. And so what really makes this work is that it's all of that done perfectly with a really good set of referential nostalgia for the 1980s. And I feel terrible bringing up a different novel that I did not care for, but this is like Ready Player One with a competently written female character and much, much more thrilling, because it doesn't just use the fact that like we wore our hair big. It is specific 80s citations that might not even work for every audience. You just know that it's important for these characters. And I think that's the skill of this as a novel, and frankly, the weakness of this as an adapted film.
Yeah, ooh. I honestly, David, I'm really glad that you brought up like the 80s of it all, and how this does, like, if you remove that sort of aesthetic, it becomes kind of like a paint by numbers sort of plot. But that reminds me of on Great British Bake Off, whenever a contestant makes like a very basic, like classic version of like a pie or something like that, because they have to be absolutely perfect. They have to make like the platonic ideal of an apple pie. And if they do that, then it's high marks, because even though it's not something brand new and different and outrageous, it's still just like, I have created what a pie should be. And it's right. And it's excellent like that. And I think that's kind of what Hendrix has done here, is he's taken like a very standard exorcism story, but he's told it so well that I don't mind that it's not like trying something new and different and really exciting and literarily like out there, because it just feels good to read, and it feels nice to experience something that's so cinematic, and we've seen played out a million times on film, in a novel with this fun 80s pastiche over it all. So.
Yeah,
absolutely. When this is such a turn, but you gotta like stay with me here.
I'm ready. Let's go.
No, so when The Conjuring came out, like a lot of people were saying that it was like derivative or like nothing unoriginal. I was like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you make a haunted house movie or anything else. You just take the tools in the box and you make a good story with the tools from the box. And I think that is a really great way to put it, Tyler and David. You guys are so smart.
Well, I think the other thing that makes the horror more effective is that we're not just using the finery of the 80s on this horror story. We're also choosing a very, very specific perspective, which is not the exorcist, and it's not the victim. It is like the best friend of the victim.
My best friend's exorcism.
Literally, it's in the title.
It's such an evocative title, because you know instantly everything about it. And most of the time, in most exorcism narratives that we'll see, like, the kid is alone. And that is not the case here. And that is one of the novel's greatest strengths.
Yeah.
Speaking of strengths, our strength is talking about things through the lens of queer theory. So what did you guys think of this book using that lens?
So, I mean, I think I've already talked a little bit about this when talking about Satanic Panic, but the 1980s was a time where sexual revolution was being squashed because counterculture was, well, counter to the culture. And modern resistance that rose up to that squashing is queer history. And a lot of that's linked to the AIDS crisis. AIDS is referenced in the novel very, very smartly as the way that teenagers would reference AIDS in the mid to late 80s. And the specter of Ronald Reagan sort of hangs over everything that's happening with the characters in this book, even though the Gipper doesn't show up. That would have been terrifying.
Oh my God, please don't
talk about a jump scare. Novel idea. The Reagan just shows up in the third act. Everyone would scream. That being said, for a novel written today, using the 1980s reads as very queer because the themes, the motifs, the culture that came out of the 80s that remained in this sort of resistance space, today we identify as being part of our shared queer experience. And again, not to like Clive, whatever your name is, not to like bash Ready Player One, but the problem with Ready Player One is you picked all the straight things from the 1980s, and this book picked all the gay things from the 1980s, and that's what made this resonate more for me.
You're such a hero, and thank you so much for speaking your truth. I haven't read the book or seen the movie, so I'm gonna just take your word for it. But I love that for all of us, frankly. I just want to say that I think we can all agree that found family is a pretty queer genre.
Yeah.
And Abby and Gretchen are each other's families. They're the loves of each other's lives. If this isn't at least in some way a narrative with queer aspects to it, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement with both of you about this. I think Abby and Gretchen are absolutely the love of each other's lives. I think there is something queer, like sexually or romantically going on between them, because after all, like at the beginning of the novel, they have their little DBNQ, dearly but not queerly, when they say they love each other. But then that becomes Abby saying, I love you queerly in the climax to Gretchen. So I think there's something there. Maybe it's one of those things where, you know, it just never fully manifests. But I think that there is something that goes beyond just platonic love between them. But I think there is also a social queerness happening between them as well. In that, you know, they are there for each other in a way that goes beyond typical best friendship. And then especially once we get to the end and the two of them mature out of their teenage years into adulthood and then later adulthood, there's absolutely something going on between them that is queer in the sense that it's not a heteronormative relationship where there should be a man and a woman married together, but instead they are there for each other in that found family dynamic, and I think that is definitely queer as a result.
I agree. Well, then, are we ready to jump into this one in earnest?
Let's do it.
Awesome. Well, the story begins in the future, an unnamed date of the future, with the protagonist Abby reading about the death of a character only named the Exorcist. The news makes her remember how the Exorcist saved the life of her and her best friend, Gretchen, when, in 1988, Gretchen was possessed by the devil.
So cinematic.
This is such a banger opening. This is where I was like, you know, we're starting end media late, but we're about to like jump into the res of it all, and I was like, what's going on? I don't understand. But like the final two paragraphs are like, I really desperately need to get more details, and so it's using that literary technique to its like fullest extent. This is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's super evocative. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the story pivots to 1982. The year when Abby turned 10 years old and held a birthday party at a roller rink. She invited all of her classmates, but there was another party that day being thrown by the popular Margaret Middleton, and only one person shows up to Abby's party, Gretchen Lang. Despite a rough introduction, Abby agrees to teach Gretchen how to skate under We Got the Beat by the Go-Go's. But then Abby skates into school heartthrob Tommy Cox, getting tangled up and hurting herself enough to go to the emergency room and get stitches. The next morning at school, Margaret is bullying Gretchen for not coming to her party and teases Abby about her stitches. Margaret says Abby is lying about skating into Tommy, but Tommy shows up and admires Abby's stitches, giving her a cold can of Coca-Cola. The experience pairs Abby and Gretchen. They are best friends now.
I sort of, because we have talked about Elf on our Q&A episode back from Halloween, I was on Merrily watch for quite a bit of the beginning novel. And this roller rink, I was like, oh no, do I need to call Merrily and do a wellness check and see if she's okay?
You were right. Like, this scene made me like pause my audiobook, and I did not come back to it for like over a day, because I was just like, I can't watch this. I can't watch, like, this can't be happening so early in the book. God, no.
Yeah.
No!
This shit, like, it's so real. Like, I remember, like, my elementary school coming up with the rule to, if you are inviting people to a birthday party, you have to invite the entire class, so that no one feels left out. I remember that was a rule that got implemented. And then I remember also both having those birthday parties where 30 children showed up, and then going to birthday parties where 30 children showed up. But I wasn't really friends with the birthday person. I just went to go because it was a social obligation. And just like, God, it's so mean, but it's so 80s. Like, I could hear the synths from Stranger Things playing in my head while reading all of this, except for when We Got the Beat played, and then it was We Got the Beat in my head. We got the beat. Also, so fascinating to see Margaret, this enemy, in 1982, and then what becomes of Margaret as we do our time jump into the gang's sophomore year.
Yeah. I love that she's not just an antagonist. She is a mustache twirling evil rich girl. Mm-hmm. Like, we are doing everything to mark Margaret as evil, and then that changes so dramatically. I also love that, like, Tommy Cox is set up here and then kind of vanishes. And that'll happen a couple times. Like, we'll introduce this boy character who's like, ew, has cooties. And then, like, later we'll get Gretchen being like, yeah, I hooked up with him. But then he's never mentioned again. And it's so great to see an author so sure of themselves and comfortable to say, like, there are just sometimes people in your life who have a role and then they are gone. Like, we don't need to keep coming back to them because I named them one time.
Mm-hmm. That sense of change that we talked about as one of our themes.
Yeah.
You know, that definitely crops up here. Really, really love it. This is a great kind of intro and giving us the stakes of these characters that we're going to hang out with for the rest of the novel.
Quick vibe check for both of you. Have you been to a roller skating rink? Was this part of your childhood?
Yeah, I went to a roller skating rink a couple of times during summer camp.
Okay.
There was one, I lived for a good amount of my childhood in a place called Naples, Florida, mm-hmm. and there was a roller skating rink just far enough away that you can take a bus full of kids 1 week of summer camp to spend the whole day there and then bus back.
Okay.
So I had a great time. Convinced myself that I would like roller skating outside of the roller rink. Turns out I don't, by the
way. Fair.
We had roller skating nights on, like, the academic schedule. So, like...
What?
Yeah. There would be nights, like, maybe once a month or once every 2 months, where the school would say, like, okay, we rented out this arena. I think it was, like, the Stars Complex, which is basically, like, the YMCA, that, like, the school would rent out in the evening and just be like, okay, you can all go roller skate there. This is an official school function. But I never went because I don't know how to roller skate or ride a bike.
What kind of school were you going to, man?
We lived in the same area. I went to, like, Gateway.
Yeah, no, like, we've had this conversation before. I'm just, like, really impressed, like, how different, because we never did anything like that. What the hell?
Yeah, girl, it was, I never went, though, so I don't know. I don't know if it was fun or not. I don't even know what it's like there. Everything I know about skating rinks is from pop culture media.
That's fair.
I went roller skating every Sunday.
You're so fun. Did you know that?
And then to get home, I had to wait for my ride, and I would sit as he went to Bible study. And I would just listen, and they required us to take our shoes off, which is fine. That's a very normal thing in people's houses. But I had just been wearing roller skates for like 3-4 hours. And so I had like some stanky ass feet. And I just remember sitting there being like, I feel bad, but like, there's nothing I can do. Sorry about it. God, people.
So over the next 6 years, everything happens and nothing happens. We get glimpses into the development of the relationship and their families. Abby's family is poorer than Gretchen's, but Gretchen's parents are very strict. Then comes a day that changes Abby's life forever. Her and Gretchen had just eaten lunch when their classmate Glee Wanamaker, was in distress because she accidentally threw away her retainer. Gretchen insists they help, and so they look through the fetid garbage. At first, Abby is incensed. Then they are helping Glee. There's another rich kid at the private school that they attend. But then she decides that she can be the kind of person who helps others, and she dives right in. 1 year later, Gretchen and Abby are as close as two friends can be. They watch Haley's Comet and wonder if they'll still be friends in 75 years.
I highlighted this whole scene. I wasn't sure how I was going to read the book, but this whole scene of Abby's realization was actually the only thing that I ended up like really drawing attention to, because it is just this beautiful moment of a maturing person who says, I can choose to be bitter and hateful, or I can choose to help others. And watching that happen for a character, even though we're not in a first-person narrative, which I think is so fascinating to do this all third-person centered, was so cool. And I mean, this was like the first time I shed tears in this book, and it was just so beautiful and told me what I need to know about Abby, which then becomes very important for the rest of the story.
Yeah, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
I really love that scene. I actually like had a kind of a similar moment. Like freshman year of high school, like at one point I like made a decision about myself, and because like I know that this might seem, very surprising, but I was really angry for most of my childhood. Like I was furious. I was a volcano. Like but then at one point I just was like, hey, you know what's exhausting? Being this mad all the time. And so I made a conscious choice to be like, I don't need that anymore. And I've never been that mad ever again in my entire life.
Hell yeah.
And let me tell you what, that was exhausting.
Well, I'm so happy that you had a similar moment, and we've gotten to know you through the podcast as this lovely, very kind, very affirming person. So we love the Meryl Lee lore.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's just like when that was happening, I was like, I know exactly what she's feeling right now, and like I get it, and I really I felt for Abby in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's such an important moment as well, because it comes from like after we've learned a lot more about Abby's family, and we see that her dad is kind of like not just milquetoast, but seems very lost in his own personal life and just doesn't seem to know what to do, and retreats into like this shed where he's fixing lawnmowers and stuff. And then Abby's mother is very bitter and very hardworking because she's essentially the sole breadwinner.
Mm-hmm.
But she has very negative feelings towards other people in their town in South Carolina, because she knows that there is a class difference between the wealthy people and the poor people. And I love that that becomes very much a theme that keeps on resonating throughout the book, is this idea of class and how people are treated differently, or people behave differently depending on perception and their place in the various classes. But Abby is the person to see that cycle and makes that conscious decision to break it. Yep. And again, like we're talking about how this is like a very sweet and mature moment, but it's also extremely impactful for Abby, because I think if she had not made this decision, she would have become a completely different person, and we wouldn't have this story. Like, right. I think that's a wonderful moment, and yeah, it tells us so much about Abby for the remainder of the story.
Yeah, like I if this had gone the other way, and Abby had decided, you screw this and like walked out, I don't know that she and Gretchen would have remained friends. Like she definitely wouldn't have been close friends with Glee. I think that everything would be a lot different for her. And I don't think that, Abby loves the way that things turn out in this book, but I can only imagine how much worse things would have been for Gretchen and everybody else if things had gone a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of the things I loved about Hendrix is that in this opening sequence, he is time jumping us all over the place, but that's done. We are now in 1988, and that is where we'll remain until we reach the climax and then denouement of the book. So from here on out, it's 1988. Abby, Gretchen, Glee, and Margaret Middleton are sophomores and best of best friends. The group is sunbathing on a boat out by Margaret's house, and Margaret has procured some LSD and asks the group if they want to get high. They all agree and take some, but hours later, nothing seems to be happening. Abby suggests they go skinny dipping instead, and Gretchen is the first to strip and take off for the water. But by the time the rest of the group catches up, she's nowhere to be found. Abby goes to look for her in the woods, finding a strange abandoned building where she hears a voice calling her name. Abby runs out of the woods to get the help of Glee and Margaret. The sun's starting to come out, and they head back into the woods, and Abby makes it to the abandoned building where she finds Gretchen. She's still naked, she's cold, and something is different about her.
The escalating tension is so good. In this scene, like, this whole section feels like a horror movie in and of itself.
100%.
Because it's, like, these teenagers, I think it's probably Labor Day weekend, so it's, like, the end of summer. They're all hanging out, and they decide, let's do some drugs. And, of course, it's LSD, which is going to affect so much. And so there's a lot of like worry and anticipation, and I think Hendrix saying, like, purposely making it seem that nothing is happening for the longest time is such a great way to like lengthen that tension, because it just means like something is going to explode and go wrong because nothing is happening. So it's just we're holding our breaths for something to happen, and then of course something does. So just very, very excellent writing here. But I think also, I think the fact that Margaret is there is so fascinating. And David, I know you have some stuff in here in our notes about Margaret, so I really want to hear, what do you think about like Margaret becoming part of the gang?
Oh, I love it. I love it so much because this is actually how groups of friends end up happening. Like, nemesis become friends, and we had set up Margaret to just be the bitch on high, and now they are thick as thieves. They have their own language with each other. It is so, so incredibly well done and so well realized for a group of adolescents to have done this. I also think it pays dividends later when there is a fracturing of the group. But for now, like, I already knew that Abby and Gretchen were going to be together. Hello, best friend is in the title of the book. I was shocked when Margaret Middleton showed back up, and it was delightful. It was really, really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Quick question, David. How many nemesi did you have when you were young? Because, like, the way that...
Merrily, to the day, I have a list that I keep up to date of nemesises in my life, because who knows when I might need to reference it.
Mm-hmm.
You are a delight. I'm thrilled by you.
I actually just had a similar experience where this guy who I was in my friend circle in high school, but I never really like talked to him that much because he just kind of gave off a vibe of like, you are secretly like libertarian or something. And then lo and behold, over Columbus Day weekend, or I think it was Columbus Day itself, he posted something about like, thank you, Columbus, for bringing civilization to the New World.
Oh, no.
And someone in there was just like, yeah, he enslaved a whole bunch of people, and he was like, they were doing it first, wink emoji. And I'm just like, I knew it. I knew you were on my nemesis list for a reason.
See, that's why you do it, merrily, so that you can feel right and vindicated later.
20 years later. But it's worth it.
It's a lot of work, though. I would actually recommend against it. It's a lot. I spend a lot of time thinking about people who have wronged me. I do. I actually don't hold grudges. This is mostly a bit, but...
Yeah, same. But also, like, not totally.
We're learning so much high school lore about everybody. I'm really into it.
It's Jantinuary. This is the time.
It's all about teens. Teens. The other thing, this building becomes a pretty important set piece, but I think that when I was reading, it was remarkable in how unremarkable it was. Like, we never went inside of it. It was sort of this ominous building, but it wasn't necessarily something that I thought, like, evil was centered around. And boy, does the film choose to go a different direction with that piece of information from this story. We spend a lot of time in this shack in the film.
We really got to talk about that movie at some point.
We do need to talk about that movie.
See it.
You should not watch the movie.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, I won't. I had heard it wasn't very good, so I will.
I think if I hadn't read the book, I might have had a favorable impression of the film, but the book makes the right decisions, and the film, not even for like it's a movie, so it's harder to do this. The film makes other choices and just bad ones.
Gross.
We're gonna pick your brain about it, Joe.
I'm ready.
It's gonna happen.
There are gonna be a couple times that I'm gonna have to bring the film back because of how significantly better the book is.
So Abby drives Gretchen home, but Gretchen seems disconnected. Abby encourages her that it will all be okay and that she is getting home before her parents get back from church, so she can get cleaned up without them noticing. Abby goes home herself, checks in with her dad, and gets ready to go to her job at TCBY. So 80s. Gretchen calls the store and tells Abby that everything is covered in blood. Gretchen had taken a bath and shaved her legs, but the water turned bright red, and she can't tell if it's real or if she's freaking out. Abby talks her down, tells her to call later that night, and goes back to work. That night, Gretchen doesn't call.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, this is probably my first scare of the book because the description Gretchen is giving Abby while Abby is in like her TCBY uniform and someone's like, the vanilla ice cream isn't working, or frozen yogurt because it's TCBY. This was like my first scare because it was sort of the juxtaposition of this very normal environment and scene and white ice cream to like blood red water. But it also wasn't blood. And so it's this whole thing of like, well, maybe Gretchen has experienced hallucinations that no one else in the group seemed to have experienced from the LSD. And so again, what Hendrix is going to do for us for the first 2/3 of this book, first half of this book, is really play around with the idea is there something more here?
Mm-hmm.
I really love Abby's solution to this because, like, as much as you could tell she obviously wants to stop and like help her friend immediately, her solution is like, get a white towel. Is there blood on the towel or not? And like the way that she like immediately like pitches that as a solution, finds out like no, it was just a hallucination and all of that, I think was so smart and just like such a quick. I really I appreciated that about Abby in that moment.
Yeah, it was definitely like a good like trip chaperone moment of like calming someone down if they're having a bad acid trip, which is very insightful and wise of Abby to have done that. And I think it also like further demonstrates like, oh, here is like textual evidence of how good a friend Abby is to Gretchen and how much she cares for Gretchen. So I thought that was really wonderful. David, I'm actually kind of surprised that this was your first scare, considering there was some spooky stuff that did happen in the shed previously. Like, there was, like, a face that Abby saw. I also just found, like, it was terrifying that Gretchen was missing and no one could find her.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm intrigued by that, but I also think it's, like, yeah, that makes sense for David.
Yeah.
That tracks.
Yeah.
But yeah, just, like, I think this whole thing with the trip and Abby is able to kind of calm Gretchen down does kind of reveal this sense of like queerness between the two of them, that there is something very special that they have that goes beyond just like best friendship potentially, of like Abby knows how to fix things for Gretchen.
Yeah.
She can be a caretaker for Gretchen when she needs to be in a way that her parents can't. The other friends can't, because Gretchen did not call Glee or Margaret, she called Abby. And I think that's very crucial.
Well, and I think importantly as well, Gretchen and Abby always talk every night because they are best friends, and for Gretchen not to call is going to be something that we're going to explore a little bit deeper pretty quickly.
Pretty quickly.
Well, the next day, Abby picks Gretchen up to go to school and asks her why she didn't call. Gretchen says she was on the phone with Andy, her summer fling from Bible camp. When they get to school, Gretchen keeps flinching, complaining that she feels someone touching the back of her neck. Abby wonders if it's flashbacks from the acid trip, but the rest of the friend group says the acid didn't work. At a school assembly, Gretchen shouts "Stop it" in reaction to the feeling, interrupting their volleyball coach and getting sent to the administration office. She was instructed to apologize, but instead, Gretchen quit the volleyball team. Her friend group is very startled by this development, but Margaret's boyfriend Wallace is just kind of a shit. Gretchen immediately tells the group that Wallace smells his sister's underwear and then vomits hot, milky liquid towards him. In the liquid are black feathers that looked like they were moving. Gretchen's eyes meets Abby's, and she mouthed, "Help me."
Gross.
Yeah. Loved all this. Love all the gooey disgustingness that is in this book. And this, I think... This goo is goo. I also think this is the first that I was like, is this happening? Or are we about to like wake up from a dream? And I don't know if it was the writing style from the author or just where my head was at. I was constantly waiting for us to be like, oh, that didn't happen. But it never does. Everything that happens. And that is wild.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wish that the listener could see that little dance that David was doing when he was talking about how much he loved that gross part, because truly giving. But secondly, I know that Abby covered it up. Like, she, like, covered up the vomit with a coat to make sure nobody, like, saw, like, the feathers in it. And I know, as obvious, like we've talked about before, we will continue to see it as a theme, no one at the school is giving a shit about anything happening with these children. Like,
right.
That's just, like, not a concern. But, like, personally, if I was, like, a janitor cleaning up this vomit, if I was, like, anybody who was there and I saw, like, feathers in this girl's puke, I would be calling every doctor. I'm, like, shocked that no other person noticed this. Like, come on, guys.
Yeah, it's pretty foul. I mean, we don't know what happens to those black feathers because it says that they were moving, or it looks like they were moving, so they could have turned into worms and dug into the ground or something. Like, it could be, there's any number of things, but I do think it's worth kind of remembering that it's like a milky liquid that Gretchen vomits up, because that will become very resonant later. I would like to talk about the school assembly a little bit.
Like the real life horror. Got it.
Yeah, we didn't touch on what the point of the school assembly was, but it was intended to basically be like a pro-abstinence sort of assembly, which makes sense because this is a private school. I think it's Christian private school as well.
Yeah.
Like, definitely Protestant. It's definitely not a Catholic high school. Because I went to one, and let me tell you, this is not what it's like. But
Tyler, this isn't not my culture.
This is not my culture. Anyway, like the school assembly is like a pro-abstinence thing, and the volleyball coach will not stop talking about how valuable and important a girl's virginity is, and how it's precious and it keeps you pure and clean, and if it's gone, then it's like you're spoiled and bad and ruined. And like, it's so part of what is reinforcing that negativity that is just virulent throughout this entire community, and the school and everything else. It's part of what guides everyone's decision making, is that Gretchen is this pure angelic being because she's really great at school. She does all the sports. She's beautiful already before she goes through her change later. And so she has to stay a virgin, but now here she is, and she's kind of ruined. She's sick. She's just like, blah. And when I say ruined, I mean that's how she's being perceived. But like, you know, it's just constantly like being reiterated, and Gretchen is going through it, and she's getting poked in the back of the neck, and it's just this terrible experience for Gretchen, and no wonder she reacts in the way that she does. But I think just the fact that this is all happening during a school assembly that's talking about the importance of virginity, it's just like, as David was saying, the specter of Ronald Reagan is prolific throughout the entirety of the novel, and I think it's really coming through here because it's reinforcing this idea that if you're a girl, you must stay chaste and pure and perfect and virginal, and if you're not, then you are outcast and gross and wrong and ruined.
Yeah.
And it's that's that heteronormativity that's coming through here.
Mm-hmm. It's like Reagan was in the room with us, and frankly, I didn't care for it.
No.
Mommy, I would like some jelly bean. I don't have a good Reagan. I don't know why I started that.
Oh, boy.
So Gretchen doesn't come to school for the rest of the week, finally returning the following Monday in the afternoon. But when she comes into the ethics class she shares with Abby, Gretchen doesn't recognize her friend and sits away from her. When Abby finally catches up to her to ask about her, Gretchen reveals that her parents forced her to see a doctor because they heard her making quote-unquote sex noises in her room, and the doctor specifically was there to see if she was still a virgin. It was, she worries that her parents are going to have her committed. Their friend group is still a little bit fractured from Gretchen's confrontation with Wallace. Abby wants her to apologize to Margaret, but Gretchen instead says that she hopes that Margaret dies. Gretchen asked Abby to get a phone after her parents took hers away because she needs to call Andy.
Yeah, I liked this whole runner with Andy. I think it was both an effective red herring that we'll later find out, and a good device to move the plot forward when we finally learn who Andy is. I thought that was really good. This whole thing is just this is really scary. This is when things start to get really tense between Abby and Gretchen.
Yeah, and Gretchen and everybody else in the school. It's like really good. I think that another thing, like in the earlier bit before she tells Abby that she needs a new phone, like that first night she talks about how she couldn't sleep, like because of the LSD flashbacks, like where she kept feeling like she was being touched, and she said like she could only fall asleep after she talked to Andy on the phone for 2 hours. And so then here, after the phone was taken away and everything seems like so much worse, she's desperate for this phone, potentially because it's the only thing that like lets her have a rest afterwards. You know what I mean? I always thought that was like a fun little bit. The Andy of it all is great.
And I love everything that goes on with Andy. I agree. He's like a very effective kind of red herring, but also like a good device to move the plot forward. I think it's interesting too that Abby is the only one to call out that this doctor, quote unquote, that the Langs took Gretchen to, it was a violating, unhelpful person. And I think it's very much part of that knowledge that only Abby can possess because she knows Gretchen so fully and completely, more so than anyone else does. And I think that's like an excellent call out, but it's also just very haunting because this is something that happens in real life still. And you know, even though this is set in the 80s, it's one of those things that feels very resonant to the present. Yeah, some real life horror here as well. So Abby brings the phone over, and things are looking more like their usual friendship, sharing weird theories, talking about their friends, and laughing at the farting dog named Good Boy Max. Abby heads home, but before she leaves, Gretchen begins performing Dixie from the loft upstairs in front of Mrs. Lane in her book club. Her father comes upstairs, and Abby thinks she sees him get pushed by Gretchen. Right as Mr. Lane tells everyone he is okay, dozens of birds begin flying into the large windows of their house. Sparrows, pigeons, seagulls, even a pelican all crash into the windows. Then owls arrive and start to feast on the fallen birds. From the top of the stairs, Gretchen falls to her knees, clutches her head, and screams, "Make it stop, make it stop, make it stop." But it doesn't stop.
Wow. Just again, to credit to this author, Hendrix does this thing where things are moving at a fine pace, and then they get turned up to like 14. And this whole bird sequence with the bird death and just the description of the death of a pelican that has flown into a window is very scary and very, very well done. And if you can hear the words to Dixie, way down south in the land of cotton, while birds are flying into a window, like it's very, very good. Very, very evocative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It also feels just like it's classic exorcism bullshit. Where it's like, of course, like the demon is sending birds flying into the windows, and it's kind of also reminiscent of the birds from Hitchcock. It's just a great. Hendrix has such a great handle on how to tell very visual elements, and I think that's part of what makes the story so cinematic. And it's very disappointing to hear that the movie really kind of diverts from that. But this is the point for me when I felt like I have to keep going on reading, because every time I was ending a chapter, Hendrix would throw in a line that was just like cliffhanger. I was like, fuck, I gotta keep reading. I gotta see what happens next. So really, really wonderful. This whole scene is very well done. I think it's also worth pointing out that we didn't mention it, but Mr. Lane, I believe, slapped Gretchen at the top of the stairs before Gretchen appears to push Mr. Lane down the stairs. I think that also is a demonstration of like things are fucked up, and it doesn't matter what class you are or how religious you are. Abuse is going to be present in some very horrific scenarios, and I think that's part of what we're seeing here. But I think what's more horrifying before the birds is just the idea that Gretchen is embarrassing the Langs among their peers. And if there's one thing that we learn about this community in South Carolina, it's that proper decorum must always be kept, and you must always be perceived as being the perfect nuclear Reaganite family. And if you are not, then you will be exiled and talked about, and or even worse, just ignored and dropped off the face of the earth by everyone. So I think that's really great stuff happening in this scene and in this chapter.
Yeah, seriously. Just like the way that, like with the Langs, before Gretchen goes into the house, Mr. Lang asks her, do you know what's going on with Gretchen? And Abby has like a moment of like where she deliberately chooses not to reveal something because she knows the way that Mr. Lang is about Abby and how strict he is, and then versus when Gretchen first comes down and like Mrs. Lang sees her hair has been crimped, and the way that like she grips Abby to be like, did you do that to my daughter's hair? It's all very telling about what kind of people they are.
Oh yeah.
And then there's one other thing I want to say in this section, which is, of course, that the owls are not what they seem.
I'll find out more about that eventually.
Someday you'll learn.
Someday.
I don't dislike owls. I think they are very effective set pieces in this book. I think they look silly in the film. They're just flying. They're just like cute little flying owls, and they're not scary at all.
I love owls too. I think owls are adorable. Like they're gross, terrifying predators of the night, but I think
I was about to say they would eat a downed bird, and that was somewhat like a pelican outsizes an owl substantially, and the description of like owls going at it on a pelican is like a little bit like a hyena got an elephant. Like it's just really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you didn't like the Langs before, buckle in, because over
Oh boy.
Over the next few days, Abby continues to worry about her friend, but no one else seems to care. Gretchen continues to change. She's less put together, starts to mask a rotten odor with perfume, and is overall less playful with her best friend. Gretchen eventually begs for help, finding Molly Ravenel, a local legend of a girl sacrificed to a satanic cult. She asks Abby to never leave her because she can't do it alone, and then she tells Abby everything. She says that she's been having her period nonstop for 2 weeks, and that she had lost her virginity. Abby becomes instantly protective and demands to know the name of who did this, but Gretchen worries no one will believe her. Abby tells Gretchen's parents about the acid trip and then tells them she was raped that night. But the Langs blame Abby, throw her out of their house, and forbid her from being near their daughter. Abby tries to go to the head of the school to get help for Gretchen, but Mrs. Lang has already given her story to the school, and Abby's scholarship status is threatened if she keeps digging at this. Abby tries to get their friends to help, but Glee and Margaret turn on her as well.
Fuck the Langs.
Seriously, like, when you're like reading the book, you can like see the moment where Abby goes from concerned best friend to them to like degenerate, horrible drug dealer. And like she asks, like they ask her, like, what did you give her today? And she's like, I didn't give her Diet Coke. What do you mean? And like they're talking about drugs. They think that she's been, like, Gretchen has been on drugs this whole time. They are not listening to her because it's the 80s. Being on drugs is the worst thing you could possibly do. Much worse than being raped, which is a horrible rumor that you shouldn't start about a girl who has a precious virtue. Just like made me fucking sick. I also think that it was completely offsides and like horrendous of Glee to call in Margaret and have like that 3-way call where like Abby is trying so hard to get Gretchen help, and like Glee uses this in order to like dig for information and like calls Margaret up like that. Glee was on my shit list after this for sure.
Yeah, because they all suspect Wallace of being the rapist. I mean, not to cut between things, but that's why then Margaret becomes so pissed off because Wallace is Margaret's boyfriend.
And I'm sure it's also like a bit of, you know, the 80s perception of what sexual assault is. Yeah. And so the idea that also that Wallace would have had sex, not raped, but had sex with Gretchen, just even the idea is enough for Margaret to be infuriated by that, because it implies that Wallace is cheating on her and not anything else that goes along with sexual assault. So, you know, just a really horrifying cascade of events. And I think, like, I talked about this in the beginning, but I think Hendrix does a really good job of writing about this kind of subject matter with a degree of realism, maturity that is not very common among male writers and just male creators. And it also comes up, shades of this do come up in his other book, the Final Girl support group, because I think that there's a lot of the way he talks about surviving a slasher is very similar in ways to people that have survived domestic abuse. And it takes, I've seen a lot of people kind of say that these books are like kind of humorous or parodies because the subject matter is so like these are kind of funny titles or punny, and there are some elements of humor in these books, but I think that there's a lot more maturity and seriousness that is present than probably Hendrix gets credited for. So I'm glad that we're able to kind of talk about this and praise the book and praise a male writer being a good ally by depicting people who are very much in the wrong with these sorts of takes and opinions. So that's my little spiel about that. But everything is really falling apart now. We're very rapidly falling into the descent of Gretchen and what Abby is able to do to kind of get past all of this.
Yeah. So a week passes before Abby and Gretchen see each other again. Suddenly, Gretchen is looking much better, healthy and beautiful. Abby asks if she's all right, and Gretchen asks, "Oh, why wouldn't I be?" Abby still sits near her friends, but they don't want anything to do with her. While eavesdropping, Abby can hear Gretchen talk to Margaret and Glee. To Margaret, who is trying to lose weight, Gretchen provides diet shakes. For Glee, Gretchen eggs on her attraction to one of the teachers, Father Morgan. Margaret starts losing weight. Glee starts exchanging love notes to Father Morgan. Gretchen seems happy, and Abby remains uninvited to this formerly close group of friends.
Yeah. While all of this starts to seem a little diabolical, here in particular is where I began to wonder, did this friendship just change as friendships do? Like, I kept waiting for another red herring. Like, this is all just circumstance, and friend groups just do sometimes change.
Yeah. A lot of this sequence feels like Mean Girls, but in the inverse. like Margaret is eating or is drinking these quote diet shakes, very similar to the way Regina George eats those high calorie bars, thinking that they're meant to help her lose weight. Glee is being egged on to get closer to Father Morgan by Gretchen, and kind of satisfying this like fantasy that you might have as a teenager of having a crush on the teacher, and like what happens if we get really close, because when you're a teenager you don't understand sometimes how inappropriate that can be.
Yeah.
Especially if you're someone like Glee, and Glee I think is portrayed as being kind of like a very nerdy, bookish, quiet type with not a lot of self-confidence. Like the first time we meet her, she's trying to find her retainer in the trash. Like she's a little bit of like a potato of a friend. But I think so, like trying to pursue someone that she has a crush on seems like the ideal way for Glee to kind of fix all of her own problems without realizing like, oh no, this is wrong, and Gretchen is doing this to try and ruin Glee's life.
Right.
And so I really like the way that this whole scene is portrayed.
I love how well we're using the mixed media of the novel here. During the first sort of sequence of these things, we get these like interstitial 17 magazine Are You a Good Friend quizzes. No idea on how they score anything, and you don't even need to really read them, but they add so much to the texture of all of this. And then the real I don't know, just like devastating, heartbreaking one is we get these little tear out notes from ruled paper on what foods Margaret has been eating, starting with 15 pieces of celery, 12 carrot sticks, 8 slices of apple, and 25 grapes, to no food and only these milkshakes that she's been given. And that is, you watch it happen in real time. So the author doesn't need to tell you that this is all Margaret's eating are these milkshakes, because that's communicated through this extra narrative. And I just think it's really, really brilliant and very evocatively scary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it took me a second to realize like what those numbers were and everything. But once I did, woof.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that broke my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Especially as the writing becomes more haphazard, like the handwriting itself.
Yeah, God, I also do want to point out that, like, once Gretchen gives into her possession, she becomes even more beautiful than she was before. Multiple times she's, like, being described as, like, glowing.
Mm-hmm.
Which is so counter to, like, the popular possession narrative. I really thought it deserved, like, a special mention, because I thought that was really well handled.
Yeah.
Like, before, when she was fighting it, like, she was constantly wearing, like, the same clothes. She was described as, like, smelling rotten and foul, and, like, all of this other stuff that was going on. But now, having given in to this evil force, her hair's cut super cute, and she's beautiful. She's gotten all of these new clothes. I thought that was really evocative of like this major change that she had undergone. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
And it works so well too for this specific audience that Gretchen is a part of, because we've been told by Hendrix that this population, like I said before, really clings to appearances. And if you are beautiful, or if you have like this perfect life and this perfect family, everything else is forgiven or ignored or forgotten because you are performing in this ideal state. And if you are othered in some way, if you appear poor or ugly or just not going along with what is considered the standard of this community, then you are exiled, you're forgotten, you're left to the side. And so even though Gretchen just experienced this huge downfall, both socially, personally, physically, she immediately springs back up because, like, oh, she's beautiful again. Okay, well, now I love her. Now everyone wants to be with her and surround themselves with her. And so the possession itself is so smart because it like the demon that is possessing Gretchen knows, like, this is how I can get close to people and ruin people's lives. And so, really well done, and also like a smart way to kind of weaponize class and demonstrate like how this division works. So really fascinating. A school assembly invites the Lemon Brothers Faith and Fitness Show, where the performers extol the virtues of Jesus Christ by performing acts of strength on stage. Like, strength is in muscles, by the way. They are lifting heavy things. They are not showcasing, like, oh, I went to Haiti and fed all of these children because of the strength of Christ. Instead, it's like, no, I could pick up this really heavy log through Jesus. So, very campy, very, very something else. But during the show, one of the brothers, Christian, the youngest brother in the group, looks at Gretchen and says he can see her demon. After the show, Abby goes to talk to Christian. He tells her that he saw the demon haunting her friend, a demon in the shape of a great owl. He hands her a pamphlet before packing up and leaving.
This is... here's the deal. There's not a lot for us to talk about right now with this scene, even though it's, like, critically important for, like, just a little bit later in the book. And I'm just going to say the writing in this is so good. There's nothing important for us to talk about, but I had so much fun reading this chapter because it truly makes this, like, god-awful assembly so much fun because of how well written it is.
Mm-hmm. It's, like, a very good, like, moment of levity that horror movies so often have. Where, like, the worst things possible have just happened, and now it's like, okay, let's take a quick break to laugh, and back to it. So I enjoyed that just in terms of story structure. I thought this was a good time.
Yeah, Hendrix is really a master of, like, relieving tension in, like, these very strategic places, and, like, in the narration, Abby even talks about, like, how funny and silly and awful and fantastic this assembly was, and that, like, really comes off the page.
And I don't know if it was just me putting my fantasies into the book, or I read these as, like, giant men. Just giant. And so then, of course, the film didn't cast giant men. They cast men who I felt like I could reasonably become with a fitness, guru at my side for 3 years. And that was a little disappointing because later we'll revisiting Christian, and they're like, we couldn't even find manacles big enough to chain him together. And for him to just be a normal guy in the film was a little bit of a letdown, because this truly felt like, I don't know, like Lenny, Mice and Men big, I was thinking.
I was thinking of, like, the Pump You Up skit from SNL back in the 90s.
Yeah. Or just, like, Brock Lesnar, where are these muscles coming from, sort of muscle men.
Oh, should have gotten John Cena.
Should have. This.
Yeah, no, that he would have killed it, actually. He would have been really good.
This film could not afford John Cena.
No.
Well, Abby breaks into Gretchen's locker and steals her daybook in an attempt to figure out what is going on with her best friend. In the back of the book are pages that read, "Kill them all, I want to die, kill me, make it stop." She decides that she has to go to confront Gretchen, but Gretchen claims that they're still friends, and she wants her friends to be happy, which is why she's helping Margaret, and why she's helping Glee. But while they talk, Abby can see that Gretchen is writing upside down on a notebook the words, "Not me," over and over again. That night, Abby looks at the daybook and finds the number for Andy. She dials the number, but it's Gretchen who picks up. The line has a lot of static on it, and Abby hears Gretchen's voice, which says, "He switched places with me, and now I'm here, and he's there."
That phone conversation was so chilling. Like, that really got me.
So
very creepy.
Good. And as we will later learn, the demon's name is Andres, or Andy. And I loved that. I think this is a great payoff of being like, oh, it was the demon all along.
And I did not clock that until you wrote it down in our notes. So thank you, David.
I love that, Tyler. That is great.
So Halloween is quickly approaching. Everyone in their grade is on a school field trip to a university morgue, which why would they let high schoolers go to a university morgue? Such a question. And on their way there, everyone is talking about the Exposing Satan's Underground special about Satanism that aired last night on television. But after Halloween weekend, several incidents occur at school, and Abby is called into the administration office with her parents. She is blamed for Wallace being drunk before a football game. She's accused of stealing Gretchen's daybook, and the principal has just gotten a call that at the morgue, someone stole one of the fetuses from the lab. The principal offers Abby's parents to voluntarily withdraw Abby, but Abby's mother stands up to him. She is allowed to stay, and her mother commands her to be on her best behavior and then leaves for work. Immediately after her parents' car leaves campus, Abby sees a girl half naked atop the bell tower, throwing papers into the air. It's Glee, and the flyers she are throwing are photocopies of love notes sent to her from Father Morgan. She was trying to jump off the tower, but she is saved by maintenance staff.
Oh my god. Again, this is just that. It's that we're just going. Things are tense. They're already tense. The parents' meeting was so tense. Her mom standing up for her was such a badass moment. And then her mom immediately turning around and being like, listen, you little punk. Like, I know that you're into some shit. I just saved your ass. I'm not doing it again. I gotta go to work. Peace. Don't do anything weird. Don't, like, have a classmate who's naked on a roof. And then as soon as the car is gone, a classmate is naked on the roof. And you're like, ah!
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
That is such a gut-wrenching betrayal, by the way, for Abby's mother. Because we're so used to the adults not doing the right thing and helping Abby or Gretchen that the moment it actually does happen, it's so good, especially when it's Abby's mom talking down to the major, who is such a huge fucking asshole principal of the school. What's it called? Abelard or something like that?
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Albemarle, I think it is, but either way, like, he's such an asshole, and to see Abby's mom stand up to her and refer to him by name, it also demonstrates that, like, all these adults fucking know each other because everyone is from this small fucking town, which also is why it's got such a brutal classist element and explains why people interact the way that they do. But then the fact that Abby's mom goes and essentially slaps her in the face emotionally with, like, I don't trust you. I think you're embarrassing us. We worked so hard and I worked my fingers to the fucking bone to get you into this school, and this is how you pay us back? Don't do this shit again. It's so heartbreaking. And I could feel for Abby in that moment. Like, it's like, I felt more hurt when the Langs kicked Abby out because I'm so invested in the relationship between Abby and Gretchen. But this was also just like another punch in the face that it hurts so bad. Hendrix did such a great job of demonstrating that, and Abby is the only one who can save Gretchen at the end of the day. Abby is the only person that she can rely on, and I think that's such, like, again, that demonstration of the importance of found family and how it's so important to have a community of people that we trust, even if that community is just two people, because a heteronormative society will not help you if their own interests are threatened. And I think that is very much played out here.
Yeah, 100% agreed. I also just want to throw out there that horror never settles for a simple Tuesday. And so Halloween is when things start to go crazy.
I like it.
Crazy.
I like it. Did either of you watch the Exposing Satan's Underground? You would have been too young to watch it when it was out, but I don't know if it had ever made its way in front of you, the Geraldo special.
No.
I had heard of the Geraldo special. I actually thought they were going to be talking about Geraldo digging up Jimmy Hoffa's vault that was empty. Because that was
would have been very funny.
That was the only thing I remembered from VH1's I Love the 80s. Was that horribly embarrassing Geraldo reveal.
I just need you to both know that I have seen this film. I've seen this 2-hour nonsense.
2 hours?
2 hours with commercials, so like an hour 10. Calm down. Geraldo Rivera goes on to say that one of the things that is corrupting your children is the spices in the foods at Taco Bell. That is a pathway to let Satan into your teenage son or daughter's body.
What?
Girl,
What
this
is
is what
it
I'm saying.
about religion that hates spices so much? What is it?
To be
Why?
fair, after I eat Taco Bell, the things that happen afterwards might
feel-
be reminiscent of demonic possession. So
I thought you just felt gayer after eating Taco Bell.
well, I feel gayer after every meal because the nutrients refill my homosexual hormones and some such.
You heard it here first. All food is gay.
All food is gay. Take
That's
that,
why.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Oh my god.
Go put another worm in your brain.
Oh my god.
No.
Oh boy. Anyway, so the time has come. Abby has called and arranged to meet with the exorcist, Christian, from the school assembly. He asks questions which lead him to confirm that Gretchen is possessed, and he knows what they need to do. They need to drug Gretchen and take her to a place where they can exorcise the demon without being disturbed. Abby is a little unsure, especially after finding things like a ball gag, ropes, and other very terrifying kidnapping tools in the back of Christian's white van. Abby goes to check on Margaret and finds Margaret is emaciated in bed. She says she was poisoned and then becomes both physically and emotionally distressed. Something is clogging Margaret's throat and starts to crawl out of her mouth. A giant white worm, which is thick and sinewy and is crawling around, and Margaret's dog Bo grabs onto it with his teeth and he starts pulling, and then Abby and the others, Margaret's brother is there, and they start pulling on this thing. 15 feet of worm is pulled out of Margaret's mouth, a 23-pound tapeworm.
I hate it.
It turns out Margaret has been eating tapeworm eggs, a common weight loss scheme. But it's highly dangerous to eat even too. Margaret has eaten way more. The doctors wanted to know who gave them to her, but she had to be sedated at the hospital. Abby, however, knows that the culprit is Gretchen.
Y'all, this ruled. This ruled.
You would think that.
It's so cool.
I'm so sorry. It's so gross. I know. But again, I was like, what is happening in this book? Because I truly was like, with this, we have gone around the corner now. This is not just like, even the thing with Glee, I could have believed was sort of just things that happen in high school. But this giant tapeworm coming out of this poor girl, this was the point of no return for me. And this is when I was like, oh, we supernatural. Like, this is evil beyond. This is not normal high school evil.
And the thing is, too, like, I forgot to mention it in the last scene, but Glee standing on top of the tower is very reminiscent of The Omen. It's a very famous scene, a jump of, like, the nurse hanging herself, dropping off of the roof, and felt like Glee was going to do that. But then here we have this scene, and Hendrix does such a great job of describing the physicality of Margaret, that in addition to Margaret's, like, tapeworm, but just the description of her body and how her stomach is hard and bloated because of the malnourishment and this tapeworm inside of her, but also just, like, her skin is, like, translucent. Basically, she can't eat this fancy ice cream. Like, the smell of it makes her gag. It's just so many horrible things, and it's just like one of those things that a horror novel is so capable of doing, of making us sit with that physical discomfort. Because I think some of the best horror is the one that is very much reminding us that we have, like, these physical bodies that are ultimately very vulnerable. And here we have Margaret, who is this beautiful, willowy young woman that seems to be perfect in every single way, diminished to this. It's horrible, and the things that happen to her are horrible, even though we know how horrible of a person Margaret was. We still feel, really bad for her. This is just like a psychotic series of events, though. It's so insane and terrifying and just so cool. I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's like really goes bananas. Like, Bo pulling the worm.
I thought I didn't know it was a tapeworm at first. I thought it was some sort of, like, supernatural snake or just a supernatural worm that was gonna crawl out and, like, start to choke Bo and, like, suffocate him, like the Thing. So I was pleased that wasn't the case, but it was still just like, ugh.
Yeah. I had a tapeworm senior year of college.
No.
Yeah. I lost a lot of weight, like an unhealthy amount of weight, and my body was trying to grow because that's what your body does. And they put me on like what I now know to be like gainer shakes, just to try to get back my body mass. But I remember asking the doctor, like, is this like, because I lost like 20 pounds. And I said, like, is this a 20-pound worm? And like, that's not how things actually work. So when the book was like, this 23-pound tapeworm has come out of this body, that is what I thought was inside of me. But mine was never that big, and I got treated for it.
I'm glad you got treated for it, David.
Yeah.
What do you know what caused that? Because now I have a new thing to be paranoid about.
I do. We were on our class trip to Europe, and we had all eaten at the same restaurant. And on the flight home, everyone but 4 of us got very, very, very ill on the flight. And 4 of us were like laughing our asses off, like, ha, 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 you all got sick. They all had a bacterial infection. And then luckily our worms ate ours. The 4 of us then later developed other symptoms, and we had to be evaluated, including sending a stool sample through the U.S. mail because it was international and had to be evaluated by the Centers for Disease Control. So the next time you eat food from the U.S. mail, just know that my poop was really close to it.
You know, a lot
Not
of
really
poop is
close
very close to food in the U.S. mail,
Just
because
happens.
that is actually a very popular thing to do now, is to send a sample in a box to have it tested.
Yeah.
That is very common to do now. So
It's in a glass. It's in a box.
yeah, it'll be fine. They wouldn't do it if it was unsafe.
I can't get over that 4 people in your class were like, ha, I didn't get sick. It's because you all had fucking tapeworms.
We did.
Horrid.
We did.
No part of that story is good, but that's especially bad. I don't like that.
I was the only boy, and it hit me the worst, Margaret's story is also very sad, but apparently it's like a little bit easier because women's maturity is just a little bit like earlier. And so I was like trying to growth spurt. My body was like trying to use all of its nutrients. So I was eating 4,500 calories after my tapeworm. 17, 18.
Wow, that's so young. Well, I guess that's their age in the book, so pretty close to it. Wow.
Yeah.
David, we must move on from the tapeworm.
I loved it. I just want to say again, love the scene. Incredible. Have more worms come out of people's mouths.
Please don't.
I want a whole worm-themed month from both of you. Bring it on.
No! Well, at least we'll finally get
Wormtober?
Wormtober. Oh, well, that night, Abby calls someone she thinks who can help. It's Father Morgan. Here, he hears her out, but they would need proof. Abby says there is proof in Gretchen's day planner, and he says he'll come over tomorrow to help her. But that night at 11:06, her phone rings, and it's Gretchen, the one that she can hear through the static. Gretchen warns Abby that they're coming, but it's too late. Her door swings open, and Gretchen is there, holding a shopping bag, which she sets down in Abby's room. She hits Abby and takes back her daybook. The next morning, the police are in her house. They demand to know about the bag in her room, inside which is a fetus that was stolen from the morgue. First of all, Abby is getting the shit beat out of her in this book. I am just constantly surprised how many people are just hitting this girl.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I noticed this in our next episode, Carrie, but like, they're constantly hitting each other and hitting teens and everything else. And granted, Carrie takes place like over a decade before this, but it's still just like, damn, man, corporal punishment, especially in the South, that is just a cultural thing.
Yeah,
that was a problem. And yeah, woo. But like, not just that, but it's also like Abby also seems to be punished in some way by Andros through like her acne resurfacing and her makeup, and the makeup is affected by her experiences, and we learn a lot about Abby's makeup is kind of like this protective shield that she has on for her own self-consciousness and her own emotional well-being. And so the fact that she's getting the shit kicked out of her physically is also like just one more thing that is ruining Abby's own perception of herself.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot going on, and I feel really bad for her. Like, we kind of skimmed over it because who would want to talk about it? But, like, the breaking point between Abby and Gretchen is this thing that happens where Gretchen tries to, like, make her put makeup remover on at school and, like, go through the day without that. Because, like, Gretchen has, like, these scars from her acne, and just, like, is like this ultimate betrayal between the two of them, just like her acne flaring up and everything that's else. My heart broke for her. I felt so bad for Abby this whole time.
Yeah, and I feel like I knew Abby's in high school too. Like, like I think we all had our own Abby moments when we were teenagers, and I think that's also part of what makes us so sympathetic to her as well. Just like these moments of like self-doubt and self-consciousness about her appearance, and so the fact that like no matter what she does, that threat of being physically seen as different is constantly kind of there for her, like passively, for Abby. And so the fact that it actually does get threatened is upsetting and harrowing, as we see things through Abby's perspective. And then, of course, there's just the fact that possessed Gretchen is here to... Well, first of all, that whole phone call of the good Gretchen saying, like, she's coming, is just very reminiscent of, like, other horror films. And also makes me think of, like, Lord of the Rings when they write about, like, the goblins are coming and all that in Moria. I just love whenever that happens in a story. But, God, possessed Gretchen is such a bitch. Just like, and the whole thing with the stolen fetus, like, that's of course very upsetting, and of course it's going to make them think it's satanic. But just
also, like, what morgue just has buckets of like fetuses, like, wild?
I thought that kind of lost me a little bit, where it made me think that Hendrix was just like, I need to have like easily accessible fetuses. Like, how can I do this? Oh, well, there's a bucket, and it's because the morgue is run by clowns, essentially.
But here's the deal: even though it maybe it stuck with you, it did raise the stakes. It did what it needed to do, and so I say, like, good job, because I knew it was going to come back to haunt us, and I think for all the satanic panic of this, that's what you need this inciting line that is crossed, and that's a line.
Oh, for sure, yeah. Like, I think Hendrix does a great job of like setting up the bucket of fetuses is kind of like a great Chekhov's gun. Then it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, I wish there was like a more elegant way of allowing a teenager to see like a bunch of fetuses and then be able to take one instead of it just being a bucket, because anyway, that's it certainly raises the stakes, and just it's hard. We definitely feel for Abby at this point.
For sure. So Abby is out of options. She meets with the exorcist, who gives her GHB, and they go to Gretchen's house. Inside, it's cold. Abby puts GHB in Gretchen's Diet Coke, but Gretchen can sense that she's there. She gets her Diet Coke and summons Abby up to her bathroom. In the tub is Good Boy Max, who Gretchen is threatening to hurt. Abby tries to get away, and when she sees Gretchen next, blood has misted her face, and she drinks her Diet Coke. She threatens to use the body of Good Boy Max to cause a conflict between her father and their neighbor, hoping that they will shoot each other. But then the GHB begins working and Gretchen collapses. The exorcist comes to retrieve them, and then they go to Gretchen's beach house to begin the exorcism.
And this is so wild. So what we needed for the other characters to raise the stakes was this fetus. Mm-hmm. What we need to raise the stakes between Gretchen and Abby is this scene with Good Boy Max. Like, this is when the demon of this all has crossed the threshold into doing ultimate evil, which is to hurt a poor defenseless animal, and to do it to generate more conflict between these two men who are neighbors. It is cold, it is calculating, it is evil, and it is a very thrilling and horrifying sequence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I love also that we had seen so much of Good Boy Max, and we had gotten a mention of it in the prologue that would clue us into, like, oh, something's going to happen to a dog. To see it happen in one sense, it's satisfying to see a narrative tie get, knotted up and finished. But at the other end, it's just like, oh boy, this poor dog, this poor stupid dog. And it's so horrifying when it plays out. But yes, I think that's actually a wonderful way to put it, David, is that for the characters within the story, it's the fetus that escalates the tension. But for us as readers, it's the death of the dog. Because a dog is going to hit us a lot harder than a fetus that's in a morgue and it's going to be used
already
for study.
Dead.
Anyway.
Yeah. Like, really, really nicely put. Like, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is scary.
So, the climactic exorcism begins. Abby assists the exorcist in his requests as they bind Gretchen, pray over her, and escalate their attempts to free Gretchen from the demon. Many hours pass, and the physical condition of Gretchen is beginning to deteriorate because of what the exorcist is doing to her physically, which is constantly throwing salts at her face, pouring hot water on her, making her swallow vinegar, etc. Abby begins to doubt whether this is really a possession. Eventually, the exorcist goes too far, and Abby has to stop him from hurting Gretchen. This act breaks the exorcist, who flees the beach house to go back to his daddy, who is talked about as a renowned exorcist by little Christian here.
Yeah.
Abby remains with Gretchen and hugs her, and that is when Gretchen laughs and reveals that she is indeed possessed. The demon threatens Abby that she will be sent away when they are found, and then it will have fun with all of their classmates. Abby picks up the Exorcist's Bible with its notes on the ritual and begins again. But this demon is powerful, giving Abby hallucinations, which stop her from continuing, and she lays defeated on the floor.
Wow. The narrative having the exorcist be beaten by this scenario, and Abby being the one to stop it, is so powerful on a climactic level, but it also does what the book needs it to do on a thematic level, which is resolve this between these two characters. Like, we cannot rely on an adult, we cannot rely on religion, we cannot rely on systems, because those things are all out to get us, and in the end, it's got to be queers helping queers, and like, man, I am honk honk, let's go. This is so good. It's so, so good.
A, you're a delight, so I hope you know that. But B, like, my thought here was, like, I was raised Catholic, and so looking at this scene, I could only think, man, very Protestant of you to think that you could perform an exorcism yourself.
I love that. Marilee's like, I have some notes. Like, if you could,
yeah,
could
no,
just...
like, it's the same thing. There was like, I was doing. This was years and years and years ago, but like, I was living in a shared space. I was like, I had a podcast on while I was like, it was a true crime podcast. I was cooking dinner for like me and my housemates, and a friend came in, and they were raised Southern Baptist, and like I paused the podcast, and they asking me what it was, and I was like, well, it's the story about this woman who died. Well, like, an exorcism was being performed on her. We talked about that for a second, and then I had to say, Protestants. It's like, what do you mean by that? And I was like,
oh no.
You think like the whole thing is like, they talked about like this was like a very extreme like thing where they thought that they had like the power of God, and it's like, never catch Catholics be doing that shit, man. I thought that was really funny. It was like the same kind of thing here.
That's so real. Yeah, I really loved everything that happened here. David, I'm so with you on, like, as I was reading it, I was hoping, like, God, I hope the Exorcist doesn't just miraculously fix things. I hope he fucks it up somehow, and Abby has to take over. And lo and behold, it does, because it would feel unfair and cheating the rest of the novel, and betraying our trust in the story that's being told. If the Exorcist was the one to fix Gretchen, no, it's got to be Abby. And I love that we had these hallucinations from Andros, just like that felt very like old school Catholic exorcism. Like there's a man with his head on fire, and there's something that's watching them, and all this other stuff. And it was just like, God, Abby is only like 15, 16 years old. Like she does not. Yeah. She should not be going through this, but lo and behold, she is. And yes, I do think it is queer people helping queer people. Even if we don't have, like textual evidence saying that Gretchen is for sure queer or something like that. We have a lot more of that coming from Abby just because we follow Abby's perspective almost entirely. But I think it is just, again, that queer relationship that they have that is non-traditional between two young women. And that is what is going to save them. It's not the heteronormative Catholic Church or Protestant church. It's not some guy in the back of a van with a Bible and a dream. It's not going to be Father Morgan, who probably has just been shipped off to another precinct to go be a teacher there. It's just going to be Abby. It's Abby and Gretchen against the world. And I love that.
Yeah, it's really great.
I like the sequence ending with Abby broken. I like the thought that maybe our hero has lost, because then that sets us up for the ultimate confrontation.
The most extreme 80s moment of all time is about to happen.
Fuck yeah.
It's so good.
Oh, because that's when the drums start deep in Abby's head. Music pushes past the whispered illusions of the demon, and Abby begins singing the lyrics of the Go-Go's "We Got the Beat." She invokes the holy can of Coca-Cola from Tommy Cox. She invokes Phil Collins. She invokes all manners of the 1980s that their friendship has thrived under. And she finally shouts at the storm between her and Gretchen that she loves her until Halley's Comet comes around again, and no demon is bigger than their love. She commands the demon to be gone, and Gretchen bolts upright and screams, and then the demon is no more. Gretchen tells Abby that the only thing she could hear as she was drowning was Abby, and Abby saved her. That's when the police arrive and take Abby away.
I was crying.
I love this scene.
This is so good. I was
crying so much during this scene.
Good.
It was so good.
And the problem with the film is that it lifts this right out of the page, but it has set up none of this before because it just had to skip things in order to be a film and make the directorial decisions that it made. So none of this is earned, and it all feels so vacant and disgusting. But in the novel, after we have gone through this journey, every single thing that Abby says is so well earned because it is about the two of them. It is not about these passages in the Bible. It is not about calling upon a higher force. That higher force is the friendship of the two of them.
Yeah, it's like it's a thing that happens every now and then where characters will like use in the place of like a faith object something that they believe in,
right?
Like truly and absolutely. And that's my absolute favorite thing whenever that pops up. Every time it happens, I feel like punching the air because that's the shit. That's the shit.
So real.
I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah, no, I love it when you have these moments of just being like telling them everything to try and reach to them about their love and how important they are to them, whether it's like demonic possession or that character has turned to evil and you have to try and bring them back. Like, oh god, that shit always gets me. It's like the power of friendship. Like, this is the cheat code to making me cry in a story.
Oh yeah.
If you rely on the power of friendship to resolve the major issue that is at play, whether that is from all the way back on Earthbound on the Nintendo Entertainment System to this book to Lord of the Rings to Star Wars, anytime you do that shit, I'm going to be a crying mess. And spoiler alert, I sure was a crying mess.
I sure was.
Heart is an awesome power, man.
It really is.
It works so good.
Mm-hmm.
So sometime later, Abby is in a courtroom. They're discussing sending her away, but then someone comes in who says that he has information. It's the Exorcist, and when he comes into the courtroom, Abby is certain this is the end. But instead, he saves her. The Exorcist confesses to everything. That he abducted Gretchen, that he forced her to steal the fetus, that he had shot good boy Max. The Exorcist is arrested and Abby is free. A week later, she and her parents move to New Jersey. Abby stops speaking. She tries to send letters to Glee and Margaret, but both of them come back, return to sender. One March morning, a horn beeps outside. It's Gretchen. Abby gets in her car, and Gretchen explains what has happened since the exorcism. She had been sad and alone, and she had gotten her father's gun, and she went to use it to end her life. But then she worried that Abby would blame herself, so she wrote a note. But then that note became a letter, and so suddenly she couldn't end her life because she needed to see her best friend. Abby starts talking, and neither of them can stop, and they keep talking for years.
Yeah, I like didn't stop crying until the end of the book. Like, it is the sacrifice of the Exorcist really got me. I think that was it actually shows compassion from a people that I think we were meant to always doubt how into the teachings of faith they actually were. And this was money where your mouth is time for Christian, the Exorcist. I think that was really impressive. Watching Abby's downfall and isolation was depressing and got to me. And then this triumph at the end was so big and so beautiful and so wonderful, and the book could have stopped here and I would have been very, very happy because I got a great resolution, and the idea that somebody went from being mute to not being able to shut up is also just really, really well, it's well done symbolism, whether you needed it to be or not. They are back, and yay, it's so great.
I think it's also a good moment to point out that Abby's father actually steps up in this scene, and it's the only time he does, and it's probably the best time he could, because Mr. Lane is trying to take Gretchen back home, and instead Abby's father says, for God's sakes, let them talk. Can't you see that they're like dying without each other? And like that is such like a wonderful like moment of queer like affirmation from a parent, and like, oh God, I love that. I really, really love that, because like they're best friends and their relationship is so special, and they are falling apart without each other, and like letting them be together and have an adult say that, it's just like, God, I wish we had more adults that were open-minded, and even if he isn't saying it because he's just like, oh yeah, they're lesbians in love, and he's just saying it as like their best friends, it's still just like that affirmation of like, this relationship that is so special that it must be different from every other friendship that exists in the world of this book must be protected, and it must be sanctified in some way, and it is sanctified in this moment.
And like, even besides, like, that's all so true and 100%. But like, I also think that there's like a real relief for both of them in the fact that like they're finally talking to somebody else who can understand what the other went through, because no other person has, like, let alone the full story, like any part of the story. None of them know what happened because none of them cared enough to know. And like, so the relief of talking to someone who understands what happened must be insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Abby returned to Charleston only once. She came to find the Exorcist, to thank him and apologize. He forgives her and tells her what happened wasn't coincidence, that it was instead meant to be. However, she never told Gretchen about this trip. For Abby and Gretchen, they drifted apart. No falling out, no great tragedy, just life. But after Abby's divorce, everything kept falling apart for her. A few weeks before Christmas, Gretchen showed up at her front door and moved in. Gretchen gave her best friend the can of Coca-Cola from Tommy Cox that she had left in the beach house. They idly wondered if they would see Halley's Comet in 46 years. Abby doubted it, Nothing was strong enough to stand against the passage of time, but she was wrong. When Abby died at the age of 84, there was only one person who sat with her every day, her best friend, Gretchen. They didn't make it to Halley's Comet, but they tried. The end.
This was, man.
Why is this making emotional now?
Yeah, like, even now just talking about it.
It's because I had to take so much emotion and scrunch it into 3 paragraphs.
Damn
Tyler.
you, David.
David!
I think what made this so special is that everything was actually so real. The Coke isn't magical. They taste it and it's like Coke.
Listen, that Coke was at least somewhat magical because that was from when Gretchen was like 10 years old and they were drinking it after like she was an adult woman who had like had a child. So like the fact that it still tasted like Coca-Cola and not like a chemical mess, that Coke was fucking magic and I will hear no other words about it.
Well, but I also like this subversion that they don't make it to Halley's Comet. I think that instead, what we turn to is that we don't go to these schlocky sort of cheap emotional deliveries, but instead talk about that they were there for each other, that is actually what mattered. And I think that's what's so powerful and important and what makes this last little section so good. To the point that even out of the corner of her eye, Abby thinks that she sees the car that she drove forever and thinks it needs a good wash. But when she looks again, it's just a different car. It's all like, I think a lesser author would have been like, oh, there's actually the car that I used to drive that some like college student got as a hand-me-down and they're driving around. But instead to play it real is the way that we do this entire final stretch. And that's such a cool choice for this author.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, it works because Abby is a mother at this point. She had a child with her husband who then divorced. So now she's a single mom who works 2 jobs, the Reba McEntire song. But, she's fallen apart. And here Gretchen is showing up and they share that love and connection that comes from their entire lifetime of experience. And it does become their lifetime because, they were there until the very end and Gretchen never ever left her side. And so I think the fact that this is 2 women who have this special queer love, raising a child together, and there's a mundanity to that life that is beautiful in the sense that I think that's what queer people work towards, that want to have a relationship, is one that is just like, we're happy, we're together, and that's enough.
Yeah.
And I think that's the hallmark of a really healthy relationship, and that's their life. And it's beautiful, and it's wonderful, and it's very affirming to queer people, and I loved it.
I do too.
Yeah. And they tried really. What great final words.
Oh, great.
My God.
Great. But then I love that it's a horror book because then, at least in the physical copy of the book, you get these pages of a yearbook that there is their yearbook. And the first one is like, in honor of our daughter for teaching the community about the dangers of alligators being around. And it's a picture of a girl who we then presume has been eaten by an alligator and could not graduate with the class. I encourage you both to go back and look at these. They are wild because they look so fucking normal, and then you read them and they're all a little macabre and dark and there's
what edition do you have?
Yeah.
That is not in my book.
We just had like 2
pages of the yearbook,
full black
yeah,
pages.
There's black page.
No.
There's black page, and then my best friend's Exorcism, a novel, and then Order of Appearance.
Oh, we did not have that. We did not have that, David.
We are doing this. We are doing it. So doing it. I don't know how to get up and down now because I put it in some sort of read mode. Here we go. So the first one is this dedication. The 1989 Albemarle Academy yearbook is dedicated to Amanda Beth Cohen. Her loss has made us deeply aware of the dangers posed by the alligator who inhabits our marshes, creeks, and golf courses. I love this one.
Shrubbery has been planted.
I love this one. It just says, "Congratulations, seniors, from the Altman Funeral Home." We've got a pig that says, "Taste me, I'm tasty," as if you would chop it open. A quote, which this is real: "Before you is a fully wound machine devised by the infernal gods for the mathematical annihilation of a mortal," from Jean Cachot. And then it reads, "Enjoy your annihilation, seniors." Again, these are just all... It's so smart to do as a horror book to give you this last little environmental storytelling. I didn't realize it was just the ebook. Maybe I've been referencing a lot of things that I had access to that you all didn't, but both the beginning of the book and the end have these flanking yearbook pages. And then Hendrix's bio is written like a senior photo and bio in a yearbook.
That's so, I'm going to have to go look at mine again, but no, Marilee and I think we had the same copy, and yeah, it's just two black pages at the very end.
In the audiobook at the very front, there was a little bit, I think, from the ebook, where they, like, it's a yearbook page that I remember thinking it was really interesting that, like, was it in my physical copy? But I was like, I gotta read this book fast because recording is coming up in a couple days. So I kind of, like, forgot that was there. But yeah, I think maybe there's more of that in, like, the audiobook than the physical copy that I have.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm glad I got to share my screen and go through that. And I think people should engage with this medium however you get a chance to. I think this book was fantastic, and I thank Marilee for bringing it to us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm really glad we all enjoyed it.
Yeah, I really, really did. Well, any other final thoughts for the episode? Anything either of you wanted to point out, or any other conversations that you want to have?
Do y'all think we'll still be podcasting when Haley's Comet comes around in 2061?
Oh, you think we'll be here in 2061?
I only am willing to agree yes to this if the comet promises to hit us. That's the only way I'm saying yes to this.
Okay.
The dream.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, if we're still here, I want to be podcasting with you. But that's a big if, my friend.
Big if. Okay. All right. Fair enough.
We can do it over rocks.
Wow.
You're delightful. I'd love to know a little bit more about the movie, David, because you were the only one who watched it.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, several points you've, like, called out stuff, but I'd love to know more about what you mean specifically about, like, the directorial choices that were made that made the movie and the book so different and the movie so inferior, in your opinion.
Well, we kept the story all in one timeline, which I think was a mistake. I think you needed to increase the budget of the film for so many reasons and invest in the multiple storylines. You at least needed to hire young Abby, young Gretchen, and do the roller rink scene. Without that, we never got a sense of their relationship. We just had to... It was a very tell, not show situation of these are best friends, which sucked. It was mystical as fuck. We go into that scary building and it is like, hello, I am a demon. I'm going to possess you. And so there's never any questioning of the audience that this is demonic. And so you sort of instantly know what's going on. We never get the period where Gretchen is distressed. She instantly becomes evil, Regina George. And we never get an experience with that. To the point that we don't even eat a corn dog with Christian the Exorcist. And that felt like, why wouldn't you do that? Because the entire point of it was that it's kind of insane that you're eating a corn dog with someone who is talking about exorcising demons. And as I mentioned, the entire climax happens back in that building, the scary demon building, when we then invoke all these things from Abby that I just don't think are earned at all by the film, because the film, for all intents and purposes, could happen set in the modern age. They may as well have had cell phones for how modern it looked. And I hated all that. I also, I love representation. I really do. But they made Abby Jewish and made it a whole point for her to point out, like, I can't do an exorcism. I'm Jewish. Hated that. Hated it. 100% in a box. We'll ship it to Haterville, where it will be well received by all of the residents because of how much I hated it. That being said, if it's the only way that you have to access this story, I think it is a okay telling. And it is B-level funding. And we love a little low-budget take. I just don't think you should spend it on CGI of Andress because you don't need it, and hire 2 young actors to play these girls.
It's a bummer.
You're a delay. I know I've said this several times this recording, but I need you to know to the bottom of my bones that I mean it. I mean it. You're so great. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that those things happened. What weird failings to have invented for yourself. But I gotta say, personally, I think it's really interesting that you guys both talked about, like, the maybe, like, this the supernatural stuff wasn't happening. Am I just gullible? Because, like, the first pages told me that there was a demon exorcism, so I, like, the whole time was like, yeah, it's supernatural, there's supernatural stuff happening, and I never questioned that there was a demon.
Oh, I questioned it the whole time, Marilee. I questioned it just because there was this person who was an exorcist, especially when we learn who he is, and I was like, oh no, this is a fraud. This is a fraud the whole time. And I was right, truly and honestly, even after the giant worm, the worm was probably my, like, corner turn. Even going into it, I had the same questions Abby had in the beach house of being like, uh-oh, this is not actually a demon. We are about to, like, do something terrible to a person who is really just fine.
Yeah, I was feeling similarly. I think I was always in the one foot is it's a demon, and the other foot is in the camp of, like, oh, it's mundane. But I do think, like, especially at the end when Abby is just like, oh my god, we're gonna kill Gretchen as instead of this demon, I was absolutely on, like, the oh no, like, what if this has all been some sort of terrible mistake, and this was there was never a demon to begin with, and it was all just, like, Gretchen had a weird sickness episode, and now her mind is, like, different and stuff. So yeah, no, I was always kind of like,
there's so much
between 2 worlds.
There's so much, Marilee. I will give this film, I do love when things are low funding. They cut Major. The volleyball coach is also the head of the school. They cut Glee's thing with Brother Morgan and instead have it be this lesbian freak out scare, which is kind of interesting. But then they also cut the line dearly but not queerly. And that was probably the bridge. That was a bridge too far.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. It was dead to me in the first place because I heard that it was not good, but knowing those things about it, horrid.
Mm.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for listening to this episode. Please remember to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Sorry,
Marilee was not ready for this.
No, I wasn't. Share your stories of Madonna-fueled teenage rebellion by contacting us at FearCodedPod on Instagram and Bluesky. Is it Bluesky or Blue Sky? I don't ever know how to say that.
Blue Sky.
Blue Sky. Contact us at FearCodedPod on Instagram and Blue Sky.
This podcast is a proud part of the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective. If you'd like to listen to more queer media podcasts, you can check out the full roster of shows at glitterjaw.com. And join us next week as Jantinuary continues, and we remorselessly knock over the most annoying child on a bicycle in Brian De Palma's 1976 film, Carrie. But for now, we will simply say goodbye.
Bye.